our ninth graders again, and we are wrapping up the civil rights unit that we started a few weeks ago, if you guys remember, in the 10th. Does anybody know what today is the anniversary of in history dealing with the civil rights movement? Does anybody know what tomorrow is? It's a big deal. It has to do with Martin Luther King.
Wow. I don't know.
Tomorrow is the anniversary of his assassination.
It is.
Today is the anniversary of the I Have Been to the Mountaintop speech. So this is a speech that Martin Luther King gave to, does anybody know where he was when he was assassinated? What city?
Memphis.
Memphis. So we know who he was speaking to. What group was he there to help?
Sanitation?
Yes, sanitation workers. So they were going on strike with the city, and Martin Luther King was in Memphis to kind of help rally their cause and to provide, obviously, like a national audience, which he was capable of doing at that point. So, talking about April 3rd, 1968 is the day that this speech was given. So I'm going to hand this out. We're going to listen to the speech, the speech that Martin Luther King, to the speech that Martin Luther King gave. We're going to listen to some excerpts, so it might sound a little bit choppy, but I need you to all take out a pen, and as we're listening, I want you to take notes, and these are questions we're going to talk about as a group after we listen. And everybody, if you can try to be quiet, because I'm not sure how loud this is going to get. I don't know how much volume I can get. So if you need to move closer, you might want to do that. All right, is everybody ready?
And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men in some strange way are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up, and wherever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same: we want to be free.
Okay, so we're going to move to another section. I want y'all to get, this is a very long speech, it's about 30 minutes. So I want y'all to get sort of the key points, and particularly the points that are really famous and are often quoted from Martin Luther King, so that y'all know where that's coming from.
Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. And I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be here with you. You know, several years ago.
So then the part we're going to skip through is there was an assassination attempt on Martin Luther King in New York. And so what he talks about right now is how he was written by people all over the country and the world, wrote him because he was in the hospital in New York. And the letter that touched him the most was from a ninth grader who said that she was white and she was glad that Martin Luther King was around and that he was talking to people because she wanted the world to change also. Okay.
They were telling me. Now it doesn't matter now. It really doesn't matter what happens now. I left Atlanta this morning, and as we got started on the plane, there were 6 of us. The pilot said over the public address system, "We are sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane, and to be sure that all of the bags were checked, and to be sure that nothing would be wrong on the plane, we had to check out everything carefully, and we've had the plane protected and guarded all night." And then I got into Memphis, and some began to say the threats, or talk about the threats that were out, what would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Okay. So as you can notice, let's talk about what y'all have taken notes on. So where, I know we already talked about this, where does this speech take place? Memphis. Who's he talking to? Sanitation workers. And this crowd also would involve anybody who was going to be involved with the rally that day. So what does Martin Luther King Jr. say is unique about the second half of the 20th century? What's changing?
People want freedom around now. Like he's the example of Joe and it's very something like that.
Anybody have anything else?
People allow them to feel more determined than ever.
Right. What makes this different? So people have always historically revolted against slavery or what they deem to be persecution. What is different?
But now it's not just the slaves that are rising up, it's like other people seeing the injustice of it too.
Right, and that's a big point. And Martin Luther King Jr., his big message is about, it's not just about the people that are being persecuted, it's about everyone coming together to fight injustice, whether it's affecting you or not. That you, by living in this society, you have a say in that, and you should be fighting that. John, what opportunity does he say people have?
I didn't hear what he said, so.
Did anybody else get it?
They're challenged to make a better nation.
Do you guys think that's still relevant? Do we still have that challenge?
Yes.
Yes. Does Martin Luther King Jr. seem scared about what's coming?
He seems like
He tries to know that, that things are going to work out the way they should be, and he knows his purpose, and he has faith that things are going to work out, whether he's here or whether people will try to assassinate him. He's not here to change the Constitution, but to
Claire, what do you think?
No, he definitely didn't seem scared. He seemed brave and like there were bigger things than his personal safety.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that makes him the kind of leader he is that this was a normal man with a family and kids who had already had assassination attempts. We've talked about people like Medgar Evers, who was gunned down outside of his home. We've seen Malcolm X be gunned down. So it's a very real threat. It's not like it wasn't with him all the time. What's the promised land? What do y'all think he means when he says we'll get to the promised land?
I think it's something about just like freedom and equality, because he says I might not get there with you, meaning like his time might come before they actually see the promised land, like equality for all. But he's saying like that's what they're moving towards.
What else? Anybody have anything else to add? Okay. Do you guys think you would have continued if you knew that you were in that much danger? Keep in mind the next day is when he was assassinated. That's why this speech is so historically important, because it's almost as if he's foreshadowing. Do you know what that means? Does everybody know what foreshadowing means? It's almost as if he's foreshadowing his own death. Okay, so I've written on the board, we have reached the promised land. Is that true or false? We're going to go around the room and I want you to kind of tell me what you think about that. Tara?
I think in a lot of ways it's true, but I think that there are a lot of people and like places in our country that have not quite moved past 1960s. Like I think our generation is a good example of how we have moved past 60s. I think obviously there aren't as many injustices, but I think it's a lot more subtle than it was. And it's a lot more about like taking the personal responsibility to be morally upstanding. And I think that that's kind of a challenge that's fallen on our generation, because like our parents and our grandparents were raised in a time when it was a lot different. So I think it's like fallen on us a lot.
And that's a good point to remember. This is 1968, guys. This is our parents' generation. This is not 100 years ago. People are still living that were involved in this. John, what do you think?
I would say I have to agree with Tara. We're making the change to our generation. We're kind of like the shift away from that, but it's still here. Still have to fight that on a lot. And especially in the South, there's a lot of exposure to it in different places, especially outside of more educated areas in Kansas.
And I think something to think about, so going off what y'all are saying, we're talking about y'all's generation and young people, and we also have to think, just recently there were high school students who intentionally murdered an African American in Jackson. So that's something to think about too, as we're talking about it. Maggie, what do you think?
I would disagree on that we haven't reached the promised land. I think that we make strides every day when we talk about it in our classrooms, but I think a lot of it has to be about the actions and the way we are outside of the classroom. And I think sometimes they're not the same.
You think there's like a disconnect between what we say and what we do? Claire, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with Maggie that we definitely haven't reached the promised land that Martin Luther King would have been talking about. I mean, there's been a lot of progress in different areas, but there's still, it's not the promised land yet, I don't think.
Yeah, same thing. I do believe that we've made a lot of strides. It's a lot different of the world now than it was 40 years ago, but we've got a long way to go. Or we come to a place where everybody just respects everybody else. That's what it's about. Like, if you just put yourself in another person's shoes, like, you wouldn't want to hurt them. And it's kind of simple. I don't understand why people can't love everybody.
You can't get it.
Don't get it.
I personally don't think we're going to ever really make it to the promised land. It might be better, but we won't always get to that place where everybody's going to love each other. We can, make changes, and everything that's going on now in the media and because of race, because of different things, that just shows that people are still going to think what they think and feel how they feel in spite of the injustice that's going on. So, as everyone said, it's going to be a personal decision to make a change, but as we can enforce laws, we can do things that they're still going to don't agree and don't follow those laws to make change.
What do you think that Martin Luther King Jr. would say about how you respond to those people?
I think he would say that it's up to the person, to make a change, because in his speech he was just talking about God's will and what he believed and what he was looking for and what he seen, and that's what made the change in the lives of others, because of what he felt and what he thought he would do.
Kathy, what do you think? True or false?
I think it's false. I think that the main idea of people coming together as one people, and also with me being a little older, certainly we made some strides, and I think that people are more aware. But unfortunately, as opposed to back in the 60s, it's almost a little more covert. People aren't as overt about it, and that's almost scarier sometimes. Personally, I would prefer somebody just,
Know where you stand.
Yeah, exactly, and be honest about it. And at least, like you said, at least you know where you stand or where somebody stands. Instead, there are a lot of people that have a tendency that has deep-rooted stuff that's not necessarily external.
Okay, I want everybody to take 1 or 2 minutes and just on the bottom of your sheet of paper, make sure you put your name and the date because we're going to turn this in. On the bottom of your paper, write your opinion about what we just talked about in terms of do you think we've reached the promised land, yes or no? Maybe there's